along and we could be on time. So I will guess I'll do a roll call. All right. So I'll go with whoever I see here. So that will be Luke Chesek, present. Jimmy Tarlow. This thing just threw me off from a meeting. Great. Just threw me off. Hey everyone, I guess it threw me off. My love and hate with WebEx. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, my apologies. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order. It is 7:02, having no members of council here, present and accounted for. I'll do a quick roll call and then we'll move to approval of the agenda, and I'll ask Scott to read it through if there's no changes. This is the same agenda items that were submitted to you guys, I think maybe 3 weeks ago. Nothing changed from there on. Okay, so I see Luke, Jimmy, Scott, and let me see, is Jared here already?
No, I don't see Jared.
Okay, so
I texted him.
I'll start meeting right now. Let's review the agenda while he gets here so we move forward, okay? So can you guys please review the agenda, and I will have Scott read it if there's no changes to it. Okay, any changes so far? If there's nothing, Scott, go ahead and read it. It's a very short 7-point agenda item, including adjournment.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the agenda for the special legislative meeting of the City of Mount Rainier City Council, Tuesday, August 24th, 2021. Meeting began at 7 p.m. The agenda is as follows. Number 1, call to order. Number 2, review of the agenda, which we're currently on. Number 3, Mayor and Council discussion and vote on appointment to Ethics Commission. Mayor and Council will discuss and vote on appointments to the Ethics Commission. Number 4, update on American Rescue Plan funds. The Mayor and Council will provide an update on American Rescue Plan funds. Number 5, Mayor and Council priorities. Mayor and Council will discuss the top 3 priorities for fiscal year 2022. And number 6, a proposal to go into closed session, followed by number 7, adjournment.
Thank you, Scott. Any changes to the agenda consoles? If there's no changes, I'd like to move for approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion on the floor?
So
moved. Second.
I heard moved by Luke, second by Jimmy, I believe. Any discussion? Nope, we already have one. Seeing that there is none, the agenda has been approved. Also, please know Councilmember Jared Stoffels is here as well, so we have a full quorum. Okay, so that moves us on to the next item on the agenda, which is the discussion and appointment of the Ethics Commission. A few weeks back, Aaron, who has been in charge of putting the documents together, submitted to Mayor and Council the recommendations from people that applied. We basically took everybody that made the deadline and submitted the resume and requirements and submitted to Council. There were 3 different people, and Mr. Kamali or Jared or one of you guys Can you guys put the agenda up in the screen if possible? Okay, while they're working on that, there were 3 people that submitted, 4 people that submitted. One of them was interested in being able to serve both on EDTHRS or the Board of Elections. The proposal sent to you guys was either, for you guys to make up your mind. The agenda item discusses a point for us to discuss and vote tonight if we need be, for us to immediately appoint them, or B, discuss an appointment for the September agenda. But we need to move forward with this because right now we do not have the members necessary for the Ethics Commission, and we need to make sure we abide by that. So I'm opening the floor to discussion. Let me know who would like to talk about this topic, or if you have any questions or any feedback on what you want the process to be.
Well, we have 4 people applied. One of them said she'd be on either of the 2 committees with 3 openings. So it seems to me to make sense to, I'd recommend the 3 people who wanted to be on it and ask Valerie Solinsky if she'd be willing to be on the Board of Elections.
So as for clarity, at this point, I have submitted both names to the Board of Elections. Like other committees, like they usually review, they invite the residents to join their meetings so that way they could ask questions, so they could communicate with the Board of Elections. That's already taken place. And tonight after the meeting, I'll also be sending the candidates to the Arts Commission as well. We have a couple of residents. So I just want to make sure although there's 2 people for the Board of Elections, usually the Board of Elections will recommend if they're moving forward to us to recommend the 2 people, which I don't have a problem. So I think we should be fine. But thank you, Jimmy, for that feedback. And anyone else? Wow, I'm having like all the problems all at once. I guess my phone took recess. I didn't.
This is Luke.
Go ahead, Luke.
No, I'm good with Jimmy's proposal. It makes sense if the Board of Elections is willing to take Valerie there, then makes sense to do the other 3 for the Ethics Commission.
Okay, anyone else? Luke, Scott or Jarrett?
Go ahead, Jarrett, if you wanted to.
Yep. Oh, thanks, Scott. Yeah, I have no disagreement with that course of action. I think, reviewing the 3 applicants, they all bring, good different perspectives, and the 4th one again was interested in serving on the other committee. Again, I think Jimmy's suggestion of moving forward 3 that we got to fill the Ethics Commission and the one to the BOE, forward to the BOE for review makes sense. Thank you.
Perfect. Scott, do me a favor, since you're next, can you read the name of the people that are part of this nomination?
At the
And
bottom,
too, please.
there they are.
Sure.
Oh, there they are. Thank you.
Yeah, the applicants are, I'll still read it. It's Tony George, Renee Regan, Valerie Solinsky, and Robert Vanderbilt. I would like to request that we vote on these folks individually if we're going to be voting tonight, because I will be voting no on one of them. So if we're going to be voting tonight, I'd like to vote on them individually rather than like as a package. But if the 4 of you want to proceed the other way, that's 4 votes and we can do it that way.
Okay.
So I'd like to move that we appoint Tony George and go one at a time.
Okay, so Jimmy, you had a proposal on it. Are you withdrawing your proposal?
No, I was just a comment. I didn't actually make a formal proposal. It was you had asked generally where we should go, and that's where I was heading. I didn't make a motion. So now I'd like to make.
Although you didn't make a motion, you had 2 other people supporting your moving forward. We could do it one by one. That's fine if that's what everybody wants. I'm okay either way. I just want to make sure I'm not hearing 3 people say move with your proposal, and you said there was no proposal made.
I thought you had asked just about general feedback. I didn't make a motion, but so I'd like to now make a motion that we appoint Tony George.
So are you making the motion to vote on them individually as Scott proposed?
Correct.
Okay, just to be clear, so there's a motion on the floor to vote on the ethic committee members individually. There's a motion made by Jimmy. Any seconds?
My motion, Madam Mayor, is just to do one at a time. So my motion is to actually appoint Tony George, and then, after we do that, we can do the second one. But yes, that means individually.
So
Either
Jimmy,
way.
I'll go ahead and do the motion to appoint individually, and then we go
Okay.
one at a time. So that way we know how it's gonna be done. Okay, so you put the motion on the floor. Any seconds?
Kim?
Scott? Second by Scott. Any objections? Hearing that there is none, I'll go ahead and move forward. We're gonna be appointing them individually. Is there a motion on the floor to appoint the first candidate?
I move that we appoint Tony George.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to appoint Tony George. Any second?
Second.
Okay, there is a second. Discussion, objection. We could go straight out to the vote if you guys want, but open the floor for discussion, seeing that there's no objections. So any discussion, so we're ready for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
You're on mute, Jared.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I just, look at the applicant's interest, history in the city, interest in serving the city, and engagement with the city. I felt like this is someone that would be a good fit for the commission.
All right, perfect. Any other discussion? Seeing that there's none, and if I miss someone, please let me know, but at this point I'm seeing nobody raising their hand. I will call the question. So the motion on the floor is to appoint Tony George for the Ethics Commission. So I will call for a vote. Any yes?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm hearing 3 ayes. Anybody else I'm missing?
Oh, aye, sorry.
So that motion carries 5-0. 5-0-0.
I'd like now to move to.
What is it? Hold on, Jamie. Wait.
All right.
I need to make sure that we state the motion correctly, so that way they give a little pause so people that are working or writing this get it correctly, okay? All right, moving to second person on the list. Jimmy, you want to make the motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Renee Reagan to the Ethics Commission.
Okay, there is a motion to appoint Rainier Reagan to the Ethics Commission. Any second?
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any objections? Okay, no. Any points of discussion? No, here and there is none. I'm gonna go ahead and call the question. So give me your votes.
Aye.
I got 1,
Aye.
2.
Aye.
Aye.
I'm hearing 4 with -5. The motion carries 5-0-0, appointing Renee Reagan to the Ethics Commission. All right, so any more motions for the 2 applicants that are on the floor?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Robert Vanderbilt to the Ethics Commission.
There's a motion to appoint Robert Vanderbilt to the Ethics Commission. Any second?
Second.
Motion first and second. Now let's open up. Any objections to open up to discussion? Hearing that there's none, this item's open to discussion. Anybody would like to discuss, or should we move to the vote?
This is Scott. I would take the floor.
Go ahead, Scott.
I plan on voting no on this candidate. I've had a couple of experiences with them personally that I don't think are becoming of somebody to be in this position, so I'll be voting no.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing that there's no other question, I will call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Jimmy?
I said, I'm sorry.
Oh, my apology. So that's 3 ayes, Scott.
Thank you. I vote no.
Okay, and I vote yes. That carries the motion. 4 yes, 1 no, and no abstention to appoint Robert Vanderbilt to the Ethics Commission. That will give us the 3 spots for the Ethics Commission. And we'll, Ms. Zielinski resume was also sent to the Board of Election, as well with the other candidate, the other committee member that wanted to volunteer for the committee. Okay, so for the September meeting that we're having, we'll go ahead and swear them in. I'll submit these documents over to Mr. Kamali. Please submit the names to and email addresses already to Lisa, so she has a head start who's going to be part of the committee, along with the resumes and everything she might need. So that way we appoint them, and she could start training and they could start reviewing cases.
Will do, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamali. Can you guys put the agenda once again, please? Okay, so next is update on the American Recovery Plan funds, ARPA or ARF, whichever you want to call it. So I'm going to open the floor for our city manager to give us an update of where we're at. When it comes to American Relief Funds, a number has been sent already to us as the latest one of how much we're going to be getting. So Mr. Kamali, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, Mayor and Council. So we have received a notification from the State of Maryland Department of Budget and Management on August 16th. So based on our budget in FY20, which was $7,247,554, we have submitted this information to the state, and the state will allocate 75% of that budget, which is going to be $5,435,665.50. This is the latest information that we have, and that was sent to us on August 16th.
So, and I'll be emailing that in. Mr. Kamali, can you share with the rest of us as well via email, or I could do it as well, so that way the rest of council has that number. We're waiting to see if it was going to change before we submit it to them, but that's the last number that's been given to us, and it hasn't changed as of the 16th. So it's a recent number. And can you please read what was supposed to be the allocated funds before they got changed? Because I'm hearing the community members thinking it's 7 million. But that number is not being updated to the 5.4.
5.4.
Mm-hmm.
5.4 million. The latest information that I have, but and based on our budget in FY25, so we get we get only 75% of that proposed budget or approved budget in FY20. So that is the latest information I have.
So, Council, I'm opening the floor to you guys. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I'll call upon you. Jimmy, I think I see your pencil raising up, but now you go ahead. Go ahead. And followed by Janet. Go ahead.
I just, if there's any information on deadlines and what the timeline for us, submission and kind of making decisions, what is it? When do we have to make any determinations? What kind of deadlines do we have to do? It's actually why I kind of want to put an agenda, just so we have a sense of how fast we have to do to make any kind of proposals or whatever.
So I'll take part of that question if you want. So out of the amount that Mr. Kamali quoted, half of it is going to be coming in. So far, that's what we told. Should be coming in the next weeks. right? The other half is going to be coming 12 months later. The first report that we're supposed to submit is supposed to be in October. I think it's late October. I don't have in front of me, so I'll send it your way. But it's pretty much the same information I've seen from you and Luke, and I think Jared and Scott also have, like, where we all share the same information. But it's October when the next report is gonna be coming in for us to fulfill. We are gonna be sitting down and doing a timeline to make sure you guys all know what the key dates are when it comes to reporting and submitting. We do have a SAM in a what's it called, number. So we're a little bit ahead of the game when it comes to that, which is good. And everything that they requested has been submitted. The other thing to point out, the amount that we sent was based on our budget, as well as one amendment that was done in FY19 that gave us a little bit more money that we were able to move from our reserves into our capital improvement plans. So that's the reason why we got a little more than originally we're thinking of giving us the second round of numbers. So that's what I said, like, this number is tentative. It looks like it's going to stick, but it's gone through a few revisions. So Jimmy, the biggest deadline right now is on October. That's when the report, and I think Luke sent a whole entire little summary of the whole entire thing that hasn't changed. It's in October. I think it's October 27 or something like that. So I'll move the floor to Mr. Kamali. He wants to add something. Wait, Jared, and then Luke. So Luke, I do see you. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Just a follow-up, just so I understand. So that means we're actually just going to be getting a check for 2.7 million, and then we're going to have to figure out how to spend that money. It's not like we have to ask for the money. That money is going to be sent and put in our budget in a special category. Is that what's going to happen? That's what I'm trying to.
So you had it to request the money, and we did. So they give you an allocated amount, but you could either turn down the money, like there's an application where you could turn it down, or fail to fulfill the application, or submit an application that says, yes, we would like the money, and this is all information. So the city of Mount Rainier submitted the request to say, yes, we would like the funds. So that check, we don't have a specific day when it's going to arrive to us. They just say it's going to arrive in September. We are looking at trying to do a community meeting in September so we could get a couple more feedback on what the community would like to see. I know that later on, like, when we heard about the funds, we had discussion about like where we were looking into seeing some of the funds, including water store management and things like that. So we had a mini discussion of it, right? But part of the ARPA funds includes community output, and we need to show proof that we have done that as well. So we're working on creating a survey as well as a community meeting to try to get some feedback. I know some of you guys were thinking about doing community outreach meetings. So if you guys are meeting with either Ward 1 or Ward 2 with your constituents, please ask them as well and make sure you write it down. So that way we could prove that we have gone through various outlets to provide that to ask for that information. Okay. So Jared, I see your hand, and then Luke.
Yeah. So this is for, I think, either Mr. Kamali. So the things I've read, my day job involves another slice of these funds, but that expenditure of these, we would need to expend these funds by the end of fiscal year 2024. Is that correct?
Yes, it should be by 2024. And also, if we need any extension, we can ask for extension up to 2026.
Okay, that's helpful. And then it sounds like the funds are allocated to us. We can draw down and then extend, not that it needs to be reimbursable.
Correct.
I believe so, yes.
And the other thing I was going to say, there is, I know there's been some pending legislation potentially in the Senate that potentially will open up additional uses of the existing appropriation allocation of American Rescue Plan funds. So I do want to keep that in mind as we move forward. If there becomes additional eligibilities, additional flexibilities and projects for this community that we not potentially commit projects ahead of time ahead of knowing what projects and other flexibilities we might have. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Jared. Luke, and then Scott?
Yeah, I think the report, just Jimmy, to answer your question, the report's due in October, but we have to have, I mean, we have to know what we want to do with the money for the report. Mr. Kamali, if he did more research, can maybe answer more questions, but we have to be not, overt, like too specific with how we want to use the funds, but we do have to identify the projects that we want to make happen. So, coming out of today, I know some of us are going to have priorities around this issue, but we'll probably need to make decisions at that September work session so that Mr. Kamali can have time to submit something in October.
Okay, thank you, Luke. Scott?
To add something, I'm sure y'all all received this as well, but just noting that County Council person Mel Franklin and Dr. Robert Blaine, who's the executive director of the National League of Cities, they're doing a virtual event right now, creating equity and investing American Rescue Plan funds, which is specifically designed to help Prince George's County's 27 municipalities maximize the impact of their American Rescue Plan dollars. So I just wanted to let you know that I did email Councilmember Franklin to ask if there was a recording of the meeting. Since obviously we're in this meeting, we can't go to that one. And I'll let you know if he forwards me the recording, and I'll share it with y'all.
Yeah, Scott, we were invited. We let them know that we were going to be having a meeting, so we couldn't be there because they wanted to have a representative from Rainier there as well. We've also attended the county executive held a meeting. We were also there, and they're trying to do a follow-up meeting when it comes to also what the county executive is going to be doing and how can we potentially coordinate with their department as well. But thank you for making sure you let us know that, and hopefully some of the community members go to jump on that call. I think it extends until 8 p.m. maybe. It's supposed to be a nice hefty call. So, okay, so Mr. Kamali, do you have anything to add on this subject?
No, thank you, Mayor. That's all I have on this topic. So as I get more information, definitely I'll share it with the Mayor and Council.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamali. Okay, Council, we're going to move on to the next topic.
I have another question.
Jimmy, hold on.
Unless
you have another question. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Sure. I mean, this is a big item. So a question either for anybody, Luke or anybody else. So the half the money is 2.7 million. Do we have to make a decision by October on the whole amount, the 5.4, the 2.7, or just part of that? And if we don't make this, I mean, making decision on the full 2.7, does that mean we can ask, let's say if we decide that we're going to spend, 2 million on this, but we're not sure about the 700,000, is that possible? Or do we have to actually direct all the whole money? Does anybody know that answer? So for a discussion.
So
maybe we could ask.
We should have some distribution where we're aiming either the second or third week for us to have a committee meeting to have some feedback, right? But we should be able to have some bullet points of what we want to do and how we're seeing on it. But based it also on what Jared mentioned, we need to be able to be flexible enough in case certain things are open up for us to use it. But number two, there's two schools of thoughts right now, right? And one of them was spend the money as soon as you can so you could get all of it back so that way people know you really need it. And the other one was like, third carefully, because based it on information, it might say 12 months, but there might be a delay on it and you'll have a lot of bills to pay before it's done. So the idea is to create a plan. I see you, Jared. Put various bullet points in front of it of what is it and what more or less we could calculate, but we could always go back and amend some of those calculations if need be to open a space for other programs or change from one program to the other. Jared, I see your hand.
Yeah, I did want to add, in addition to, feedback on the allocation of these funds, which represents a one-time allocation from the American Rescue Plan, the possibility of additional flexibility in pending legislation. So that's the second thing. The third thing is I do want to make sure that there are a number of county and other state efforts that support a lot of things like addressing rent and addressing other things so I just want to make sure that when we're thinking through things, we also do not duplicate, but we supplement if we're doing something in existing resources, or if those resources have ceased, we can potentially replace them, but that we just be mindful about we're not duplicating existing and unexpended resources from the county or from the state. And then the last thing I did want to say is, as we think about things, this is also like most of my day job. There's a $3 trillion reconciliation bill going through the Senate. There's potentially additional support coming down the pike. We have no idea what that looks like, because that's, to be shaped by Senate and House discussions into the September, October, and may or may not pass. But there are possibility of additional resources that may come to us by formula, maybe grant opportunities we pursue, and just to think about, looking forward, keeping a good tab on what comes from that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Luke, what's that? Guys, so one thing is, when you guys are raising your hand, you guys are raising it out of the screen. So I'm not sure if you're reaching for something or actually raising your hand. Luke, I think you raised your hand, but I wasn't sure if you just raised your hand. So see, right now you're not in the screen. So you just look like this with a little tiny thumb sticking out. All right, so Luke.
That's on my screen. I see my whole hand. I think, Jimmy, just to go back to your question, and to piggyback a little bit on what Selena said. So we should have the most prepared plan that we can have for October, including use of all the funds. They did not say that the reporting would be based on when you get your funds. When you get your funds is just a Treasury accounting gimmick. It's not really related to when you have to have tied to when you have to have your plans in order. You can, I don't even know how much you can amend lately. I think somebody should research that question about how much your plans can be amended, because I'm not certain about that. But Jimmy, if you look back at that email chain that I sent out where I sort of summarized the legalese from all that guidance, I'd recommend looking at that and then reading the guidance itself if you have time. It's laborious to go through, but I'd recommend it. I'd recommend all of us do, because it's very important that we don't miss anything here.
Yeah, and so directors have also gotten copies, Luke and Council, for them to also look into it as well, to see if we missed something, but also to come out with creative innovations if need be as well. So that's part of the things that we were working on before the CM was selected. But yeah, they all got shared the information. And Luke, if you're okay, I also would like to share your email with Mr. Kamali, so that way he could share with the director, so that way they have a little bit extra, the summary that you send us as well.
Yeah, he should have it, but
okay, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, Scott, I think you raised your hand. You're good? All right, perfect. So are we done with this discussion so we can move on? I see happy smiling faces. I would like to say yes, we're moving on to the next agenda item. And the next agenda item is, okay. Councilmember Chesek's favorite topic of the year, aside from the food forest and trash and recycle bins and the Arts Commission, right? So Mayor and Council priorities. Mayor and Council will discuss their top 3 priorities of FY 2022. Just to be very clear, this does not mean that we don't have any other priorities. Each one of us has a list like that could go on and on and on. But we like to sometimes focus on 3 along everything that's going on. And I will be very glad to pass on the floor to Councilmember Luke Chesek to take over this point in the agenda. So Luke, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Selena. So Scott's been present for one of these, and Jarrett and Jimmy, I know you're new to this process, so just to let you know how the process works. While I'm talking, Kamali, is there a chance to give me the ability to share my screen?
I think, let's see, Aaron, would you please?
Aaron or Jared, one of you guys, can you
Yeah.
give permission
Please.
to Councilmember Chesek
Okay,
to
Perfect.
there
Thank
you
you.
go.
There you go.
Got it?
Yeah. Good.
Perfect. So now share my meeting window.
Shows your desktop, yeah. So many things,
Okay,
Luke.
can you see me?
We could see all of us.
Can you see? I can't just share one document. Okay. Can you see the
We
Word
could see
document?
everything you're doing on your screen. That's so
Okay.
we could see us, right? And whatever you're moving, we could see. We cannot see beyond your desktop. So maybe you have to minimize this one to show what you
Yeah, minimize the WebEx.
Can you see the document?
It looks just white to me. I don't know about the
It's
rest
a
of you.
white.
Okay. This is harder.
Luke, if you can check your share options again, because I made you a co-host.
So
Yeah,
you might have to accept. Oh, there you go. Luke is sharing.
but I'm sharing just my meeting window. So maybe I can.
Minimize, so X out, or
How do I share my Word document?
You may try, if you stop sharing your meeting window, is there a way to turn that off, stop sharing? And then now that you're co-host, I'm wondering if your sharing options might include more options, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does not.
And I'll go ahead and I'm tempted to make you host and see if that would.
Good.
Or Aaron, if you want to share your screen.
Do you want to send me something, Luke?
Yeah, let me send you something.
Okay. That works too.
And let me do that. And then I can start talking. Sorry, guys.
who's like putting all the cats together?
I know, I've got to get myself together. Okay. All right, so while I'm doing this, sending this to Aaron. So Jared, Jimmy, okay. Okay, it's on its way. Okay, so while Aaron's getting that up on the screen, let me get back to the WebEx. So the idea is try to get everybody to bring their priorities together like Selena's asked for and see where potentially we have shared interests. Sometimes that happens. People name the same priority. Sometimes we just have a list of 10, 12 different priorities. And then it's important to identify an owner from at least the mayor and council's perspective. Somebody who can make sure that for that priority, the issue gets pushed, it gets on a work session, it gets to a legislative session. And another thing we've done, not as good of a job as we could, is really assigning like ETAs, like timelines associated with each priority, so that we really look at the calendar and we think to ourselves, okay, we have the fall, a little bit of the winter to really legislate different things. Then we get into budget season and a lot of our attention's taken there. So to the extent that you need to draft legislation or you need to propose things for consideration into the budget, a lot of that should happen in the fall winter timeline. So it's just good to kind of set up the year for us, make sure that we're getting things done, and make sure that we have a good understanding of what everybody's priorities are, so we can get that stuff done. So when Aaron shares his screen with a Word document, he can start typing up. I just put a table together, everybody's priority, who the owner is going to be, and we can think about a timeline associated with that. So you can see that on Aaron's screen right now. And Aaron, you should probably just make it a little bit zoom in and make it
zoom in.
bigger, but that's good. Mayor, I can go ahead and get started with my priorities for the year. And then
the floor is yours, Lou. The floor is yours, so you direct this part of the meeting.
Thank you. All right, so my number one priority is well, I actually don't have these ranked, so this isn't really number one. Just going in a list, is finishing the Memorial Park project. So that would be priority one for me, is Memorial Park. It's really that entire block. I think that the, and you don't have to put number one, you don't have to put ranks. You can just list the priorities there in that columns, Aaron. So it would be just the Memorial Park project, which is that entire block. We have $300,000 in grant funding. And I think with some of this American Relief Act funding for the Perry Street Shared Street version, I think we could just finish that project in one fell swoop, which I think would be really good. And so that's the first one. The second one is the American Relief Act, the Stormwater Management Program portion of the American Relief Act. That's another big priority. And then the second one is the third one is getting a meeting together with the Revenue Authority to talk to them about the properties that we own and potential partnerships in figuring out how we develop them, how we meet all the interests that we all have for that property. I'm not sure for all these properties. We've got the Mayor Miles building, Potts Hall, the library, the insurance building. I know we have needs for staff. I know we want to retain the library. I know we want development and parking. How can we make all that happen with potentially some assistance from the Revenue Authority? And so that's a conversation that I'm hoping folks will let me kind of get in touch with Peter Shapiro and bring him to the City Council for a meeting and just have that discussion and see if there's anything, see what they think, and see if potentially they could give us some options for what we could do with all those spaces. So those are my three. And so that's me. And I will go to, well, who would like to be next? I'll see if somebody wants to. Jarrett. I see Jarrett waving his hand. So Jarrett, you're next.
Yeah, I think for my priorities, I want to not to double up too much, but I mean the American Relief Act funds I think represent a significant yeah, it's okay. I know my last name's really hard to spell. No worries. Same thing as Luke on ARPA funds. I think just making sure that we hit both the stormwater projects, other eligible uses, and then also economic development and community assistance. Again, there is a lot of resources still coming from the state and from the county. I want to make sure we're not doubling up on those. The second thing, I think I really would like to make sure we move on a code review. I know this is there are provisions of city code that could use updating. And then with that, charter review has been a point of interest for myself and also others in the community. I want to make sure we keep moving on those too. I think we have a good opportunity going forward with new staff, new city leadership, and staff in each one of these areas. So really feel like code and charters, yeah, two separate things.
Even how your picture pull up, Jared. That's how important we are in this process.
And as folks are looking at this, like think about the calendar year and think about
Yeah.
things that might make sense, and we'll come back to that at the end. All right, who wants to go next?
Thanks for getting my name right, by the way. Appreciate it.
Anyone want to go next?
I guess I can.
Jimmy.
So one of the problems about doing this, the way we're doing it, is that we're kind of overlapping because there's some I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but there are things which we all feel are like a top priority for all of us. So, I mean, I think the American Recovery Act, I especially kind of interested in making sure that we look into what we can do with that for like aid for businesses and residents in need, and also using some of the money I saw for possibly a crisis prevention, a person maybe sharing that with other cities. I saw that some of the money could be used, while, I think a good deal of it should be for the infrastructure and, the storm management. I think there are other kind of assistance stuff we should look at. So that's another issue. Again, overlapping on the charter. I kind of think we have to have a dual. We have to actually work with the charter commission, but I also specifically want to get two charter changes now, because I think the charter review will take maybe a year to 2 years, and some stuff can't wait for 2 years. So the two things I'm specifically on that charter is a special election proposal, and also a proposal for initiative and referendum in the city. So I would add, charter review, but I think we have to both get a commission, and get that going, but also not wait for that to come to fruition, because that could take a year to two before we do everything. Sorry. Walnut Creek.
And then
And the third thing, I have four, so I don't know. But third thing is basically similar to economic development, but not so much in because Luke's talking about our city properties, but also talking about how do we both keep businesses in the city and attract businesses into the, not just the downtown area, but also start looking at the Queens Chapel area too.
business development, okay. And then I would put in friends like e.g., Queens Chapel corridor.
And also, I think more also figuring out how do we, kind of make sure businesses stay afloat in our city.
Yeah. And then, Aaron, if you could go back to Jimmy's priority for ARPA, and instead of infrastructure, if you could put business aid, business and residential aid. Because I think that sounded like more of, Jimmy, and correct me if I'm wrong, that sounded like more of your priority there for ARPA, that and the crisis prevention.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, all right, Scott.
Yeah, sure, I'll go next. Whoever's taking notes, don't write this one down, because like Jimmy said, we had overlap. But yeah, Jimmy, thank you for naming the special elections charter review that you had mentioned over the summer. I support 100% that we move forward with that as soon as possible. Okay, so mine are as follows. I would like to hopefully soon. So these are my priorities right now. For anybody who is out there watching this meeting or maybe watching it later, I did release quite a detailed platform of what I would like to work on this year and in coming years, which is about 20 pages. So if you haven't seen that, please reach out to me and I'd be happy to share it with you. But it's quite detailed and talks about everything that I'd like to work on as a council member. But in terms of priorities in the short term, I would like to work on the following. So the first is the requirement for disclosure of rental prices, which we did a first reading of in the spring, and hopefully we can do a second reading of and potentially even pass that ordinance. Just a reminder to council members, if you don't remember what I'm talking about or you need it, please let me know and I'll send that to you. It was written by the city attorney, just based off my ideas, so it's not written by me. The second thing is to do a budget amendment to restore the community garden funding at the same level that it was for fiscal year 2021, which was $4,000. For this year's budget, FY 2022, we only passed and approved $2,000 for the community garden.
Scott, how much was the how much more funding did you guys need? Say that again.
I'm hoping to restore to the previous year's funding, which would be $4,000. It's currently at $2,000.
Okay, so it'd be a $2,000 addition. Okay, Aaron, could you put that in there, a $2,000 addition?
Yeah, thank you, Luke.
Yep.
And the last thing is a little bit more sensitive, and y'all may not want to discuss it here due to advice that we have received from the city attorney. But this week, we're a month away from 2 years since one of our police officers was involved in the deadly shooting of Leonard Shand in Hyattsville. And 2 years is a long time. I would like to have some discussion, whether that happens in an open or a closed meeting, whichever is appropriate, about how and to whom we can release our officers' camera footage for the sake of transparency. I understand that we may not be able to do that because there are potential pending legal matters out there. But to the degree that we can, I would like us to at least discuss when we can do that. Because I have to tell you that when the shooting happened, I wouldn't think that that 2 years later, we would be saying that nothing has been released to the public. However, the reason I feel comfortable talking about it here, despite the legal advice that we've received, is because there's been an independent investigation into the incident, which has been available for over a year. So I just would pose the question to the rest of you, and especially for the newer council members who have only been here for a few months, you may A, not be aware of that report, and B, may not have read it. I'm not sure if Mayor Benitez and Councilmember Chesick have read it or not, but if you haven't, please read that report, because I think that will help you understand why I'm bringing up this issue, because any of the issues that were raised by that independent investigation have not been addressed. Not by us, not by the county, and not by the city of Hyattsville. And I think that that is wrong, especially after about 2 years of passage of time. So that's my number 3.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Mayor, you are next on the list. And Aaron, we can see your screen, so just... Okay, Mayor?
Hi, Luke. No, so thank you for putting this together. I know it helps to a certain extent. What I definitely would like to see done for next year is maybe have our directors in this conversation as well, even if we have a separate meeting with them, because I know they have various goals that they have priority as well, and we want to see what's overlapping in the direction that we're giving them and where they're at in some of the goals that we initially talked about the previous years. If not, some of our goals, it feels like they're multi-year facet, so they could update where they are in the goal that we decided for the previous year, and if they'll need more time for this year, right? Because if not, they have bundled up 3 years plus this 3 years. At least for me, I'll tell you this: the American Relief Fund, or ARPA, is number 1 priority. And it's not just the infrastructure, it's not just the community, but it's also making sure the community input is on. I want to make sure we're not duplicating some of the efforts. As you guys know, we have the $1 million Center Fund for our businesses, and we have been giving a lot of money as well. It's $2,000-$3,000, and making sure that we are not duplicating the efforts Mainly because last year we got, last time that we had funds, we were specifically told that if we are duplicating certain things, depending what it was, especially giving money to our businesses, then they were not going to be eligible for county funds if they're the same pot of funds just by different organizations. So I will hate for us to put them in a position that they don't. So overall will be infrastructure of the city. The more time I spend as a city manager, the more time I spend as a, as mayor, I realize that there's a lot of infrastructure stuff we need to work on. So that's like, aside from ARC would be infrastructure. And that means working with our various departments when it comes to econ, police, public works, finance, communications, to make sure we're providing what we needed to do. So the other big one, so in green sustainability, obviously as part of that. In order that with when it comes to communication, we had done a lot of strides with communication, but it feels like we still need a long way to go. So communicating with the residents is going to be on top of the list for everything we do in all departments and all across. So those are a couple of my, you could call it infrastructure and ARPA for 1 or 2, and making sure we continue making our sustainable goals coming up for this year. So that's where we're at. So that will focus, all the departments and all the various goals that we have for this year, including econ, PD, public works, finance and communication, and code as well. So I think there's a lot of overlapping with the things that we're doing already. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Mayor. Aaron, if you could do me a favor and create a column in between owner and timeline. Beautiful. And put staff. Thank you. Okay, so now I think we can go through and just kind of talk about these things, when they can get done, to the extent that staff has to be, taking ownership of things as well. I think it's important to know who that person is. And so, I can start with myself. I think for Memorial Park and probably for stormwater management projects, I think Mr. Kamali, I'll ask you. I would think that you would still be the lead there, but please, if you think somebody else from staff will be taking the lead on, stormwater management in Memorial Park, please chime in on who you think would be best as the staff go-to person for those two things.
Well, thank you, Luke. At this point, I believe rather myself to take lead on that, and later on I may have to ask Roxio to add our team, to be added to my team. But right now, I feel more comfortable to take that responsibility.
Okay, great. And so I think, ARPA, the timeline here is, October. We can just put that in as for stormwater management. And I think the timeline for Memorial Park is going to be FY 22 and 23. And I think you can just have that in there because I know work's already being done by Neil Weinstein. Yep. So I think that makes sense there. The meeting with the Revenue Authority, I was thinking, I don't know that staff need to be involved right now because I want the mayor and council to make sure they have that conversation first with the Revenue Authority. And I want to make sure we have a discussion before we even talk to the Revenue Authority, so we understand what each other's interests are in a conversation with them. So what I was thinking of as a timeline for this is we're going to have a September work session that we're going to try to get everything in order for the American Relief Act funding. And so I was thinking maybe the November work session for this, we could have a meeting where we talk about, what we envision out of those city-owned properties, what we want. And then once we kind of know what we want, invite, either Peter Shapiro or somebody from the Revenue Authority or potentially the Redevelopment Authority to talk with us at a meeting about what our interests are here. So you could put a timeline there of November for city council meeting. and then December for meeting with Revenue Authority. And that would take this sort of out of the budget season. And once we meet with the Revenue Authority, they're going to need a lot of time, and they'll probably need almost all of the spring to think through what they want to do. They might be able to come back in late spring as we start gearing up for FY23. So, that's going to take some time after we have that initial conversation. All right, so looking next at Jarrett here. It's an ARPA thing. So again, I think Kamali is probably the lead here. And Jarrett, what I'm going to ask is, I know you mentioned economic development, stormwater, community assistance, a few things. Is there, I can work on the stormwater management and work with Kamali and take the lead on that sort of discussion in September at the work session. Is there anything in particular that you want to, take the lead on? I know Jimmy's got ARPA for business development and residential aid. He cited that. And I don't know if there's anything in particular that you may want to take the lead on in getting us ready for the September work session is something that should be part of our report to the feds.
I think, as the newest council member and the person,
I'm the newest.
Sorry?
I'm the newest.
Well, okay. I'm the least tenured, if we count your previous time on council and then your time as state delegate. So I think when I look at this, I think, all of you have got the ball moving, Scott, Luke, and Selena. I mean, even Jimmy in your previous time on council on a lot of these things. So I really, I don't, unless you all want me to take a lead on a specific item, I'd be more than happy, since we're all focused on ARPA, to support, whatever you need.
All right.
Yeah, I've been on the giving end of agencies and on the receiving end as a local government grantee. Happy to help, noodle through and think through that stuff with Mr. Kamali.
So Jarrett's going to be free labor. So
yeah. Technical assistance assigned as needed. So
Aaron, next to Stolfoots on this one, in parentheses, next to his name in that owner column, put deferring and providing technical expertise. All right, so now, Kamali, you have somebody who can review anything you want. You've got free labor in Jarrett, so remember that.
It's in writing. So.
and Mr. Kamali, I have been, as a grant giving and grant receiving agency, and super familiar with compliance and all the rules that go with that. I'd be in all seriousness, I'd be very happy to help assist and work through with your staff.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, because I know this is an enormous influx of funds, and the compliance responsibilities are going to be high. So.
Okay. Aaron, for staff, you can put Kamali again, and timelines October. So next one, code review. All right, so this is one where, I don't know, Jared, if you were thinking of getting residents together or just first working with staff. What was your thinking on how to kind of start the code review?
I think I think there's both ways you can go about it. I think you could reach out to residents and get a input. I think that would probably result in focus in some areas that are critical and not in others, and it may not be representative. I think I would probably move forward with staff first, and kind of just work with staff, do a comparison with any outside technical assistance needed of where our code is and what where our code may be out of sync with other municipalities in Prince George's or Maryland or elsewhere in the US, and then bring something for folks to respond to. I think it's, I think that would probably be better, and give folks something to respond to and see where we're potentially out of alignment,
Yeah.
and then go with community feedback and response, and then iteratively go from there.
That makes good sense. So for staff, Mr. Kamali, would you want Jarrett to work with Alma here?
Yes, please, and myself and Alma, I'll be glad also to be part of that, conversation too.
Okay. So you can put Kamali and Alma in there, Aaron. And timeline here. So we're obviously going to have a lot of work to do on the American Relief Act, September, October. Alma's going to be getting up to speed with things, I'm sure, in that code department. So you may want to plan a meeting with her, and this is just me throwing this out here, maybe like November. That might make sense. And then you meet with her, and then you maybe have a community meeting in the winter and maybe able to bring something to us in the January, February, or probably February, March timeframe right before budget gets into high gear.
Okay. I think that would be, yeah, I mean, obviously I know this is an issue that folks have been concerned about. I also think doing a code update too hastily and making a hasty decision is worse than not being deliberate and thoughtful. So I think that sounds, unless the folks have other input, which I'm very open to, I think that timeline sounds reasonable, and happy to work with Alma on that.
Cool. So I think, yeah, November for that, getting started there, having a, that can just be a goal. And if you can get that meeting with them earlier, Jarrett, that's all up to you. And if you miss the November timeline, you owe us all something, drinks or something.
Also an explanation, but yeah.
I don't need an explanation. I just need drinks. Okay. Charter review. So this is one that also Jimmy talked about. So putting aside the special elections, the initiative for referendum, which I'm sure Jimmy will be able to work on quick there, because I think everybody has a shared interest there. The charter review itself, we're probably going to have a meeting at a work session and just talk through, so we don't talk through it tonight. Just tee up for a work session how we're going to set that all up, because that's going to be a long conversation as far as how many residents are on it. Does each board member get to elect? I don't even know how that plays out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know this is a big one too. I know it's been a request for folks in the community that, for quite a while. And I think we're in a place with new city staff and so forth that we can take a look at it. But again, same thing. I think, this is something we do need to start, but something that needs to be deliberate and thoughtful. So folks, I know like a number of you have been involved in these discussions before me. If there's any input you have on this in terms of approach, I'd love to, happy to run forward with this, but love to get your feedback either here or at a later date.
Jared?
Yep.
So I'll touch bases with you on it, but I think that we should not take out of the table also identities that work with the charter reviews as well, because it's a combination between legal, constitution, and whatever. So that way, don't take that out of the toolbox as well as part of your research on where this could go.
Yep. And
thank you for that.
Yeah, and I sorry, I should have said this earlier. I do wholeheartedly agree that the two items that Jimmy had mentioned, and that I know are shared interest by all of us, Scott, myself, Jimmy, Luke, that we align our voting, our the election changes, and then the referendum process. I think those are valuable additions that should not wait until we've completed a charter review.
So when do you guys, I'll just open it up to the group. When do folks think this would be worthwhile for a conversation at a work session about setting up the charter review process? When do folks think that would be good for the work session? You've got the September one that'll be heavily ARPA. got October. No, what do folks think here? I'll just see if anybody raises their hand.
Why don't we go ahead? Let me just do my part and then come back, okay, Luke? That's all
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Thanks.
So
thanks,
I
folks.
can just fill up your chart pretty quickly. So the opera stuff is basically Kamali. I mean, just my angle is trying to figure out non-infrastructure ways we could use the opera money without, given what Selena says, without kind of making sure we're not duplicating other things, whether it means relief, whether it means things like, helping public safety by having a crisis prevention person with other counties. So that's just my angle, but and that's going to be discussed in September as we move ahead on that. My part of the charter review is just really I mean, I think there's the overall thing, which Jared said he wants to get involved in. Mine's two specific things. I suggest the staff person be illegal in terms of showing them, and the special election proposal, I think we might as well talk about in September. It's already written and people can say yes or no. And then there are a couple of alternatives. And the other one on referendum would be, once we get that done, we would, maybe in November, we would do the initiative referendum, which would be like something like if 20% of the people sign a petition, something could go on the ballot. So that would, you put September on the next column and possibly November or December for the other one. And on the third thing, business development, my angle, and I don't want to overstep Scott's, because he's kind of asked to be a liaison, is trying to get the MRBA and our business development person on the same, kind of trying to figure out how we can synergize everything in terms of economic development. So I guess the staff person there would be Hopkins. And I would actually propose like trying to get MRB, having spent some time with MRBA, it's like trying to figure out how do we kind of integrate the MRBA with the economic development people. So that might be not until, October, if then. Okay.
Then Aaron, if you go to the one above, it'll be September for the special election, and then November for the referendum.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, Scott. I'll turn it over to you. You probably get the gist of it. So, what are you thinking here? Requirement for disclosure of rental prices.
Yeah, it sounds like the staff member is Alma Fiorafino. And I say that because if council remembers, the only large outstanding question, as I recall, was trying to figure out the staff time commitment here. And she and I did briefly discuss that, but we haven't talked about it since council's been in recess. So I think she's that person. I would recommend that we have it on the agenda for the September legislative meeting, but I'm not insisting on that. It just really depends on what folks want to do.
That sounds good. September legislative. Yeah, because we don't really have much planned for that. So I think that makes good sense.
Cool. Thank you. As for the community garden budget.
Scott, hold on. Aaron, can you put September legislative session? Thanks. Sorry, Scott.
It's okay. I'm glad you caught that. As for a budget amendment, it's not, so the point person, I guess is, well, Mr. Kamali will tell us if it's him or the city's staff accountant, because I guess those would be the only two options at this point.
Kamali, for a budget amendment, do you want to run point on that, or do you have anybody else?
No, I'll be there. I'll take care. Take care of it.
And then, yeah, so Kamali, you'll know as well as anyone here, or better, probably, if there's anything else that needs to be included in a budget amendment. I know there have been some personnel changes and some HR changes that might have impacted just any number of things, folks' salaries or whatever, which my understanding would require a budget amendment technically. And then for the discussing police-involved shooting and body camera footage release, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it's the city attorney, who is technically not a staff member. So I don't know if that point person then should be the city manager. if anyone has a recommendation, love to hear it.
My recommendation would be to set up a closed session of this again with everybody because Jarrett's new and Jimmy's new, and have it be like Kamali / Alyssa would be my recommendation, and then then we can decide as a body how to take it from there. And timeline of that I leave up to you as far as what you're thinking here.
It might also be legit, not just Elisa, because there are the lawyer team representing us. Just FYI.
And, well, yeah, that makes sense. Of course, Alyssa is our point of contact to them, or at least she has been this whole time. That doesn't have to be that way. And then, Luke, could I offer a point of clarification real quick?
Yeah.
Just making a note that for anyone who might be watching the meeting, and for all of us, when we're talking about ARPA, we mean the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, not the Relief Act. The Relief Act is a different law, which is a Maryland law that has to do with direct stimulus payments, unemployment insurance, and small business loans for the state of Maryland. So I just want to make sure we're not using those interchangeably in case somebody listening gets confused. So ARPA is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. The Relief Act of 2021 is a Maryland law, not a U.S. one. That's all.
Okay, so timeline for that. What are you thinking of, Scott?
For both of these?
I guess. Yeah, probably for both of them.
Budget amendment as soon as possible. If there are going to be other things that need to be amended in the budget, I think it's okay to wait to do the whole budget amendment, so we only have to do one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm flexible on that. I guess I would. So here's what I guess I'm saying. I defer to the city manager and staff to let us know when we need a budget amendment. Historically, as everybody here knows, typically the city manager will bring a budget amendment before the mayor and council towards the end of the calendar year. So I think this is probably when we would do that. I can't imagine why the community garden would need the full line item restored right now.
Okay.
And for the second one, for me, it's as soon as possible. So in September, if possible.
Okay. So let's put December for the budget amendment. And then ASAP or September for the police involved shooting. All right, Selena, you're up.
Kamali for all of it. He's our city manager. If he needs to assign somebody else, he will do it. The other point to address, I'm going to be calling this meeting next year back in probably June, because I feel like we're rushing things. And if we decide what we want our priorities to be in June, the team has enough time to work on it through the recess and then get us ready for the September agenda, because if not, time is very limited. So I'll just put Kamali all across. So I feel like there's 2 months of time that they could be researching, working together, or doing. Think about it, any of these projects we could have been working on community meetings or getting stuff together, so that when September 1 hits, some of these things will have been able to start, continue rolling. But I feel like we're trying to shove, and you guys already know, like December, January, somewhere between Thanksgiving and maybe a week after New Year's. It's very hard to establish meetings and pull people across because they're trying to meet the quarterly information. So I would suggest this meeting to be in June, so that we could wrap it up. The team, and by the team I mean the city manager and the whole entire team and the committees, could start looking into the things that we're thinking of, and just get the ball starting to move. And I'll collaborate with Kamali on ARPA and everything else. Should be fine.
And that's the October timeframe for that one. And then the communication with residents one?
We're already working on it. So that's Kamali, and I think he will assign Aaron. I pretty much could feel that, but it's he's a city manager. No, we're calling names of people that we fit, but ultimately, city manager should be involved in all these discussions, like CCN and everything. And then if like he will sign whoever needs to be, but communication probably be Kamali because it's his team. And I've been working with communications on that lately, like under his purview as city manager.
All right. Well, guys, this is pretty good. Maybe zoom out a little bit, Aaron, so I can just kind of see the whole list. Perfect. This is looking really good. I would the budget amendment one is a good one to kind of point out, and you'll see that December date there. I might change that to November work session, and that way, folks, if you think of anything that wants to be included in a budget amendment, try to keep that in mind. Send a calendar invite to think about things, because that we could get everything to Mr. Kamali, talk about it during that work session, and then we can bring it up in a legislative session in December and get to work there. I think that the important thing, obviously, the number one shared priority of everybody is ARPA. So Jimmy, Selena, myself, coming to that September meeting with really some concrete is best we can. Details about what needs to be done will be important. And a lot of that falls on Kamali, but just make sure you're having those conversations with Kamali, not right before the September work session, but as soon as possible, so that we can have a really good understanding what ARPA is gonna look like for us after that September work session, because that is right around the corner. We've got a holiday weekend coming up soon, so and I'm mostly saying all this to remind myself to get my act together. But everything else looks really good. I think that charter review will be a good conversation, and it'll take some time to work out. I'm happy, Jimmy, you're on the special elections and the referendum. That means it'll get moved fast because that legislation's there. Scott, you've got that legislation for disclosure of rental prices, so get that up and running. So we got a lot of things that will be up and running here this fall and winter, and I think that'll probably set the calendar up well for the budget coming in the winter and spring. And that is all I got, guys. Mayor, back over to you.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you, everyone. So we'll move on to the next item, closed session. Scott, can you please read the reasons for entering closed session, please? And after that, we will vote to go into closed session, and then we'll log out and go into the different login that was sent to us through Aaron. Okay, Scott, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I have not been informed about what we're discussing in the closed session, so I don't know which number to read.
It's number 1. It's on the agenda, Scott. So if you read through the agenda, it tells you specifically what it is, and then there's a little paragraph at the end that says what it's for. It's like a one-line thing on the bottom, but
So
it's there, right there,
yeah.
number 6.
So number 1 is the reason. Got it. Okay. This is a notice of a closed session, Mayor and City Council, Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. Virtual meeting. According to the annotated Code of Maryland, the Mayor and City Council, excuse me, of the City of Mount Rainier, Maryland, have the statutory authority to close a session under General Provisions Article 3-305B for the reason of subsection number 1, which is to discuss. Excuse me again. I beg your pardon, everybody. So again, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, any other personal matter that affects affects one or more specific individuals. Sorry for stumbling through that. The Mayor and Council City proposed to go into closed session on this Tuesday, May 18th, 2021.
To discuss personnel with the city manager.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's the reason. So if you guys recall, I sent an email a few weeks back that we're going to go into closed session following this meeting. So now that Scott has read the whole entire information, I would like to ask for a motion to go into closed session for reason number 1, as stated by Councilmember Scott Cecil.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any yays?
Yay.
Aye.
Aye.
So I heard, and I will be the fifth one. I see there's all ayes. We will be entering closed session. To the public, thank you so much for being here. And Council and Mr. Kamali, please log out of this account and then let's log in back into the closed session account. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will see you guys on the first Tuesday. And thank you, community, for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.